workshop of the North Whitby Pool Park and Recreation Board of Commissioners has come to order at 5:02 p.m. Roll call. Commissioner Larson.
Here.
Commissioner Crainer here. Commissioner Hartman. Here. Commissioner Whitmer.
Here.
And Commissioner Guy will be coming. All right, the budget.
So as Julie kind of talked about at the last meeting, is without the way to build the pricing, because we don't have the pricing structure yet. What we did for now, knowing that going into this next one next year, that we'll have to make lots of budget adjustments as we go. So we did an increase of 10% on most of the revenue lines, except for like classes that we don't think will be running, like babysitter, because we don't have an in-house trainer right now. And the way that we plan to go, after talking with like the head lifeguard who does want to train up now, she'll be here longer than she thought, and we think this is a good fit for her. So that's why you'll see some of those revenues blank, because she doesn't have those certs yet. But as her training goes on and we get those certs, we might add them later on. Yeah. And so like the basketball and stuff, all of that stuff is based on how we currently price it. And we just did the 10% increase because that's generally the increase I would direct the staff to go to be conservative. And so I was telling Commissioner Larson on the way here today, I was pricing metal buildings to see how much it would cost us to build our own gym, because the high school is becoming so busy, like that gym space is getting eaten up. So, I'm still gathering prices like that. If we could do that through a grant, I already know that we're primed to go for the grant for the $300,000 for the renovation of the locker room. We talked with Dave Paul about this last year. He said, yep, we'll get it going for next year. So I intend that I will probably see that application come from him in December of this year. So that is the grant that we put in of that $300,000 that are in there. I always think it's easiest, and Julie, you tell me if you to start with any questions that you might have had reading this.
I think one of my very first ones was bigger components that we would need to engage in the conversation or kind of not hear. What's our bank balance? What are we anticipating transferring to reserve, and what are we projecting in and out for the rest of the year?
So I don't have that calculated yet, because I don't know where our ending as of the P&L for September was 551. Mm-hmm. So 551 is where we were at the end of September. We were still waiting on the treasurer's report, which should typically hits the 10th or 11th. So today's the 11th or close. We're expecting to see that next week, and to see what that distribution is, because if it's over a certain amount, it means I probably will get less at the end of the year versus if I get it more of it right now, if that makes sense. So for instance, last year we thought we'd see $126,000 come in December of last year. We did not see $126,000. We didn't even clear $100,000 last year in January. So this distribution this month will help us try to forecast that for the end of the year. So I haven't forecasted it yet, because last year I was so off. Because the year before we did get $126,000 in December.
So projected, all things going successfully, seems like the levy might hover around 1.4, and that will be broken up among how many payments?
It's
monthly.
Yeah, it's dependent upon when people pay their property taxes. Typically, we see a large deposit in April that we get the treasurer's report that shows that mid-May, and then again at the end of October that we see mid-November. And then all of the others are the people that either pay early or pay late. For example, when the levy failed and we were closed, we actually received a small bit of taxpayer funding every month, and it was people that were paying late, and then they were still passing that on to us.
That's nice. It was. Fine.
So
Keep the lights on.
last year our carryover was about 428,000, I believe.
Somewhere in that ballpark.
Right around in that ballpark. So I won't know where we'll be until we see that October distribution. And we don't typically see that until November. Last year, I guesstimated it early. I guesstimated it before we got it because we had that board meeting in October. So this year, since I knew that we wouldn't have that set number right away, I thought, well, let me wait a little bit before I forecast on it. But the amount of 1.4 million, $11, that's already been, I've already turned in my levy paperwork to the assessor's office, and that's correct. That's the.
You're like, give me that.
Well, that's why I was asking Dave. Is she out sick? Like, what? I need to know my budget number.
Called election. He's filled out a form. I love it.
And she's really great.
Okay, so what are our goals for this meeting? What are we trying to get accomplished?
We're trying to understand what the board is going to support in terms of staffing, in terms of salaries, cost of living adjustments, where you want us to go with those. Every November, we put before you guys, I think, the cost of living and not the performance, the.
Yeah, we did that in October this year. I think you were out.
That's right. So well, the one question we were having today is if they're not going to tax overtime, when do we think that would start? When do we but there's no real, that was part of what I did today was research. Is there already an active, this is the bill that's going to go to the floor in the first 100 days? There's not. So I don't think that we'll see that in this next year if that happens. So I think in terms of our salary, the other wage increases for her position, my position. And then one of the things that we were talking about was the maintenance director position, what we would do with that one. And we think we know what direction we're going to go in terms of how we're going to set up the position, leave it as salary exempt. The other thing is, do you guys want to approve healthcare for full-time exempt staff and a couple of non-exempt staff, 2 positions of non-exempt staff? Those numbers.
So there are numbers in here, and I did not have time to go make a bunch of copies, but I did pull this and print it. This is from Association of Washington Cities, and it's just all of their different rate options for the healthcare. We do have a policy that is in place for healthcare. I think the question is the division of it, because it covers 80% for employee and 50% for children. And so the number in here is the full number if the district were paying 100%. So that number would adjust based on that cost share. And then I think something that we're hoping to have revisited is just what that cost share looks like, because it doesn't really match what Jay was promised when she came on board.
Can you see?
511. If only. So it's just looking weird. It dark. It's no. So it's show the salary or is it there? It's down here.
Just asking what I'm here with.
So Julie, do you want to start going down? If there's no other question, we can start going down them.
I thought you had 3 questions.
Oh.
I think that was only 2.
Was there a
Do
third?
you have a third?
I can remember the two. I've moved on.
Did anyone else have questions?
These like orangey brown lines are, that's the benefits.
73? Is that what I'm seeing?
She said starting at 183.
Oh, 183 was the maintenance director position.
Okay. I'm looking for the cost of the benefits.
Cost of the benefits is line 230.
Thank you.
Colors mean.
So, oh gosh, what do they mean? We did it last year.
Here's colors and I just updated that.
Um, I think full-time non-exempt was red. Purple was exempt staff. But I'm not sure why the maintenance supervisor is brown.
Ignore the colors for now, please. I will read color code. Yes. I'm going to make note for that.
I'm currently meeting the 78,000 benchmark that's gonna go into effect for salary non-exempt in January.
That's what we added up here, and that was part of the conversation that we talked about. We're doing it for a large employer because this year we did hit that max of, I think we had at 1.75 employees. So we went from small employer to big employer this year, but we are prepping for that. And that is in here.
What would we be classified as now?
We'll be a large employer.
Right now, we're a large employer.
Well, for next year, currently we're classified as small employer, but notating that we hit that 75 this year, going into next year, we're gonna have to be large employer. Because currently right now we're at like 34, but I'm gonna start staffing us back up to where we need to be.
So you anticipate going 34 to 75 in how long?
Hopefully by May. Hopefully by May.
I would say we'll certainly be at the 50 mark, probably when we fully onboard for basketball even. That usually bumps us back up right around there.
It sounds like all you're doing is hiring.
Well, we've been doing is losing people. Hiring please, for the last year.
With that big kind of push, where do those job responsibilities lie? Are they going to fall on Julie? If that's the case, where are those important pieces that we look for gonna come in?
Well, that's what we were looking at when we were looking at the maintenance manager, right? If we were going to split that. But if you went to the median average of that salary, it was already hourly would have taken him to 77,000. Where the exempt threshold for a large employer is 77,700.
Yeah.
So it just made sense for us to keep it in that exempt role. But we're going to bring back a rec coordinator and have them only focus on recreation. And we bumped up that salary to what, 54,000? No,
It's full-time hourly.
it's full-time hourly, but it's more than what it was before.
Okay.
And then not going, that was that conversation about Dee bumping her up and training her from in-house as a head lifeguard and moving her towards more like a pool manager. We'll still have the swim lesson coordinator under Julie. I like that the business manager is in charge of that because sometimes what you can see is it more, I think it'll just be tighter reined with a business manager looking over it. But her front desk job now has been pretty much handed off to our front desk coordinator. So she feels like she'll be good with that. And that rec coordinator will still report to me.
I'm not nearly as judgy as my face may say that I am.
No, I took it as pondering.
Just thinking.
And that's more of the division that works well between us as well.
And the admin assistant, are we?
So
Yeah, that
that's
personal
in,
bag.
yeah, that's in to be a 35-hour a week position in this budget. So that, I think that's an increase of 7 or 8 hours from what it was previously budgeted.
with more of a requirement of helping on like special event like 4th of July when we're manning the booths down there, when we're doing the parades, stuff like that, where there needs to be more liaison between the board, because like I think next year I'll be running the Whidbey Wags parade, because that was a discussion at the end of this year, where if I'm running the Whidbey Wags parade, it'd be helpful if like the BOC coordinator is there to help them guide them where they should go if they want to do the parade and stuff like that. Well, and I feel like sometimes I'm getting pulled in two directions but then I'm putting things up.
What are the big things? What are the big? So one thing I will say is like last year you gave us a wish list, just a very cut and dry. I loved it.
He kind of gave us that before he left for Illinois again. Shane. Right, but we did give it to you guys kind of in the long structure, the maintenance of what that was going to be back when we did the thank you, the comprehensive plan. It's in there as well, but we can provide that on the next round.
I think the board as a whole kind of agreed to really look at in the event of a successful levy is getting Julie the software that she needed.
Yep, it's in there.
Oh, it's in here.
So 2 new computers, some new I got a real janky
Hold on. I'm gonna tell them right where it is. Line 246, I believe, contains the bulk of Jay's wish list and mine.
I would like a new printer.
Well, so that line has for Spring Rep the software, the OWL for board meetings, some new office chairs, 2 new printers, 2 new laptops, 4 new monitors, a card printer to print membership cards for up front, and then I need to add about another 600 in there for some additional items that my front desk coordinator identified they could use up there. And then a couple of things that I thought of after I'd plugged that number in.
The owl that we're looking at is it was the second step because it hit the amount of people that we typically see in a meeting. As well as have like a bar on the wall so that if it was just how you were supposed to do it if you went up to that many people. So, but I haven't talked with the rep yet to say, do I really need that? Or because what it allows the user to do is see the whole table at once versus individual little windows of you. So
you can do that without the bar.
I think so. I just want to make sure at that second level. And I didn't get that far into the second level with just grabbing quotes.
Yeah, we use one of those every other week and have a meeting twice as big as this.
Okay.
We don't need the bar.
Okay.
So you're talking about for the owl?
Yeah.
Yeah, an owl would be fine for us.
This little box? No, it just meaning the recording has started.
Just want to make sure. Yeah, I looked at it earlier. Yeah.
Now that my
Well,
big
since
eyes.
we're Pocket line 246. I am.
Yeah.
For most organizations like ours, board members need to be protected. And they're protected in the way of public meetings, disclosure, and for any time that you are conducting business on your personal computer, your personal phone, that can be requested legally. And then that takes, anytime you do this kind of work on your personal equipment, that leaves that open to being confiscated for legal proceedings. I've been on a couple of elected boards, and the organization has always provided something just to use for the business of being on the board, so that if there is ever a request for that, personal life isn't thrown into turmoil. So I'm recommending that we look at buying either iPads or some other small device for board members so that we can use it just for that. And that's what we should see on the table instead of all of our own personal devices. And it offers protection.
I was gonna see if I could purchase those with my points before the end of the year. Would that be a suitable?
Yeah, I still think it should be built into the budget. You know, because that way it's a check we can check off, you know, it's a box we can check. And it's also a small win if we don't have to use funds to purchase these items, but just to be on the safe side, you know, like something weird happens and you can't, yeah. And something weird happens, and then they're like, "Oh, you can't use your points for 5 of them. You can only use your points for 2." And then, you know, so yeah. But I wholeheartedly agree with Bill.
Well, even with that, your personal device is still potentially at risk, but this greatly lessens the risk.
Right.
For clarification, do we need to vote on that or just remind you?
No, this is a workshop, so you're just giving us general direction right now. If you and you can't take action on anything in a workshop anyways. So and anything that you because this was a special workshop, because it was only given so many notice too, that's another reason why that you can't, if it wasn't on the agenda, you can't add it in the workshop to make a vote.
Right, but you can take a look at what that's gonna cost to bring that to the next meeting.
Yeah, I have it in here to do that.
I would say ballpark. If we went with a non-iPad option, it's probably no more than 1,500.
So here's my other question. Here's my other question for doing the schedule. If I'm buying the owl, does that mean we're gonna have our meetings here in the future?
Well, the owl is portable.
No, I know, but I didn't know if the owl was to do it so it was here, or do you want us to take it to chamber?
I think if we're at chamber, the owl just facilitates the meeting better than the system that they have there.
That's what I just need to make sure, because I'm going to be doing. I have to call the chamber and get our dates secured and do our calendar of meetings. Thank you. Julie, does anyone have any questions regarding any of this that they want to just throw out right now?
Just a comment, Julie, please price iPads. Like, I am not trying to be spoiled. It's just the functionality is so much better
I
than
agree.
like generic devices and find building agendas and not agendas.
Now, is
like
there
building minutes?
Is there anybody that prefers Android for their platform?
0.
Oh, so you want iPads?
And we should,
Even on iPad.
Okay.
and it should be uniform, because we're not always gonna be the same commissioners, and this is gonna be something that's passed from commissioner to commissioner, so
Right.
they should be formatted the same, they should be same.
I think I missed that distinction that they needed to be iPads when you asked her. I was like,
Yeah.
I said, some.
Yeah. I need a legitimate Apple product.
No. Because that's a whole different.
Well, it's gotta be current enough to hold teams on it. So.
So, just something that's sticking out, if we're at 90 processing this year, do we need a $20,000 budget for it next year?
What line?
So credit card
Sorry.
processing. Budget it based on everybody paying with a credit card. And then if people pay with cash, great, we reduce that. Also, that line is very high. And I have a couple of different sources I'm going to be working with to get quotes to potentially recommend changing who we process through. Woodby Island Bank a year or so ago thought that they would be able to save us a significant amount. And I was just kind of holding off to see what happened with the levy before moving forward with that, because it is a process to switch over. But I will revisit with them, and I have another one as well that I'll be looking at, because I think we can bring that down by probably 25% or more.
What line item was that?
This is a big jump.
271.
The HVAC PMs is all dependent on what, when they show up to work on the HVAC, what needs to be done. So we based last year's number on what we needed from the year before, but this year it's held up better than it did the year before. So that's why you don't see as much cost in there at the moment, but that could change. So that's why we left it where it was.
No, I'd rather budget, my side for expenditures and doesn't come to that, great.
I try to be, I like to make sure that we have what we need and not try to, like, I'm not one that's known to like blow things, like really expand it. I try to be conservative with the growth. But also knowing that HVAC PMs is one of our more expensive things, right? And Baron did a huge increase on us. What was it, 2 years ago?
I believe so.
So I'm wondering if another one's coming down the works. Because they said it would be pretty regular after that.
Still asking questions.
Have we gotten a quote for insurance for next year?
He's working on it right now. So we turn in our paperwork in October and then he normally meets with me. Julie asked me if she should do 10% and I said no, 20, because that's what we've seen every year so far. And last year, even when they told us that they didn't think it would be that high, you guys had already approved the budget. And I thought, okay, well, we'll see. And then we came out and I was only like, what, a couple $100 off. We're paying for California's problems. So when it comes to our insurance.
Do we know, is the levy being on the ballot $10,000 exactly? Do we know that for sure, or is that a guess?
That's a guess.
It's a guess. That number is completely dependent upon how many people or how many items are on the ballot and it gets distributed among them. That 10,000 is a number between the last general election that we were on for the levy and what we paid for commissioner seats this year.
I thought it was a little low, so we did go back and look at the numbers.
Oh. Good, just sitting in a meeting.
The insurance.
Yeah, it's important and I
literally just came across it about 440 maybe. Because I went back to check my math on something and discovered oh, they have this whole thing.
You can work with a health coordinator for that, or you just figure it out.
We've tried to go through a broker before, but because the return on what they would earn from us is so little, it's been hard to get good numbers. What we have decided to do is go out to, like, I think you got that off Association of Washington
That's what I did,
Cities.
yes.
So, like the past 2 times that I've done the research, we went through the state Washington offered because I knew that would be lower than broker. But we don't have the volume that a broker could give us a good discount on, if that makes sense. So that's why I'm looking at Association of Washington Cities, and then I looked at the state. The Association of Washington Cities seemed to be better this time around, where the state seemed to be better the last time around. Also, the state isn't very good at getting back to you, which then makes me wonder about the coverage.
the coverage is gonna be contingent on the individual insurance. The coverage is gonna be contingent on the individual insurance companies.
Right, but then how you will have to pay the state for that then, right? Our payments will go to them and they're already not responding to me very much. So if there's an issue, if there's a problem. Do you have any questions?
Alrighty, we can just, I don't think it'll take very long to go line by line through. As Jay mentioned, most things I just said 10% to from, the current year. On page 1, line 9, the general property tax, that is from the levy calculations worksheet that Jay did. Line 13 is the grant that she mentioned she'll be applying for that should, go toward the locker room renovation. On the next page, lines 17 through 20, I just added the straight 10%. So that's daily admission, basic memberships, punch cards. Line 21, kayak lessons, we did put in to try and bring back one offering for that. We think our instructor will be able to do that. The next batch, line 22 through 33, are those ARC courses that they're all left at 0 for right now. If we are able to get our head lifeguard trained up to be able to start offering those, then we can do an adjustment down the road. Water, line 40 is really the one that matters. That's the total between memberships, punch cards, and daily admissions. And that is a 10% increase off of the adjusted number for 2024. If we're able to bring on an additional instructor and add classes, that is something that we may see an increase in. I would like to do that. We do have some requests for a class that's more geared toward people suffering from arthritis or bone and joint issues. And then also we get requests for prenatal classes sometimes. And I've been chatting with a couple of our instructors on how we might bridge that into one class that would meet both needs.
Quick question on line 40. So year to date, that's to the end of September?
Yes.
Okay, so that 31,739 is only 57% of the projected 54,000.
Yes.
And so we're 75% through the year. So we're saying that we're going to budget 10% of what we thought we were going to get, which we're not on track to get by any means.
I did leave it a little bit higher just in anticipation of adding those additional items that had been slated to be added this year. It is one that if you were more comfortable, I could drop back down a little bit. It's one of my question marks in my notes.
So I think the calculations are wrong because on 39, it's saying that we've gotten $6.42 for the year for aerobics.
So the $6.42, it's an erroneous one that went somewhere weird in QuickBooks.
It also says 54,000 budget.
So we budgeted a total number, but when I'm entering them in QuickBooks, it's divvying it up so that we can see how much of that is daily admissions versus memberships versus punch cards.
Okay, so those numbers should be here.
So those numbers should all, the number in the year to date for lines 35 through 39 should total the budgeted amount or the percentage of.
So the 642 is a journal entry you need to do.
It needs to get moved to the correct line, which my guess would be that needs to move up to daily admissions based on the amount.
It seems kind of dangerous to overestimate income.
Yeah, I'm okay with overestimating expenses, but
Yeah.
at 57.8%, we should be at greater than 75%. And then we're going to tack 10% onto that expected, which it doesn't look like by any means we're going to get there. I'm comfortable with that formula for the projection.
Okay, so I can adjust it to,
Do you know what the aerobics off the top of your head? Do you know where the aerobics ended last year? Don't worry about it. We'll look at it.
yeah, I'll look at adjusting that down a little bit. It definitely was one of my questions.
I think adding 10% to end of year last year, or even year to date where we're at currently.
Or take the year to date, extrapolate it out to the end of the year, find out what that number would be and add 10% to that. I'd be okay with that.
That's what I would do too.
Yeah, so take that.
That's why I was asking if she knew what it was.
So quickly. We've been looking at an adjusted year-to-date budget, expected income of 42,345 for 2024. And so if we added 10% to that.
43,000. A little bit more.
Be right around 50. So total January through November last year was 34,943.
It ended at 36,246 and 59 cents.
Okay, and we're on track to increase that a little. Saying where we are now, that looks like 42,345. So that tracks.
Yeah.
And then add 10% to that.
So 32.
42.
42,345.
So 340. There you go.
Swim lessons while she's in there. I would make a similar adjustment to going more year to date and adding 10% with a refined number. That we could probably adjust that next year, because one of the things we ran into this year was we did not have enough instructors to be able to run the full class load that we had anticipated. Assuming we're able to increase those instructors next year like we expect to, that number can probably come back up, but I'll make a similar adjustment to the aerobics.
So that 250,000 and drop it down to 211,820.
It may not be quite that linear because private lessons versus school group, like the school group number is solid where it is, so that won't need to be adjusted down. What was that number though?
211,820.
Yeah, that school group number is solid based on the classes that they intend to run in the spring. They have not given any indication that they'll run them in the fall next year. So unless something changes, that is that number.
For once a year.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, then that's for 6 classes per session based on the rate that you guys approved for them to do the whole rate.
So you guys are talking about youth swim lessons, right? Or swim lessons as a whole?
As a whole.
As a
I'm
whole.
looking at total lessons.
Yeah.
Is that 158? If we adjust that out to the end of the year, brings it just under 212.
Okay. And you have last year's number? Did she tell you last year's?
No,
So
we
we-
were just looking at this year's.
We ended last year at 127,043, 24.
Yeah, we're already exceeding that.
Yep, we are.
So yeah, I'm more comfortable with based on this year.
So can do that.
Sure can.
There was, I mean, just concern wise, this is just for the lessons, not like spectators on.
Correct.
So if we added that as part of like another revenue, is that a different line item, or would that be part of the swim lessons income?
I didn't hear the first part of your question because of the lower.
So the swim lessons only cover the swim lessons, but there's, social media and concerns about parents being charged to watch during the swim lessons. So I was wondering if swim lessons could potentially include a revenue That's part of the spectator fee.
Well, and that's what we were talking about as part of the, right, building a class fee structure. And that's, David, that's normally how we build is based on the year-to-date participant and then the cost of filling those classes. So normally we do it on a worksheet, but that's why she just did the 10% this year.
Okay.
So,
So that's 10%.
it could, but if we drop it back down right now, we just have to remember when we build the class that we can go back and then extrapolate based on the new formula. And we can use this year's participation numbers for that total to then give you a new number.
So that would just go through.
Yeah, that would then they'd then report to the board.
Masters is another one that I had a question mark of kind of what to do with it, because I know that, is it February that we will look at the program again in committee?
Yes.
So it either has to grow to match these numbers or we have a bigger conversation with it. So I wasn't really sure what number was best to shoot for in there. If I adjust it and do the same method that we discussed for aerobics and swim lessons, that'll put it more in line realistically. It also puts it at a level where I would not be expecting the committee could recommend the program to continue. So that's where it leaves me I need some guidance, please.
The feeling that I get from the board is, and correct me if I'm wrong, because it's just me guessing at what you're feeling about it, is that you want to try and keep it going as long as it's paying for the instructor. Would that be a correct assessment?
That's reasonable, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Because at the current rate, we're looking then at about 93.50.
so that's what we can come back
10%
with.
get to-
Julie? That's what we can come back with for that then, is take the the instructor's salary, uh, for the year, and then extrapolate what that's gonna need to be in terms of people, and then if we're not meeting those people in the first 4 months, then we know to cut it. Would that be a general idea for this board?
You say that again.
That we'll take that yearly salary of that instructor, right? And then we will extrapolate what that will take to get per person each month. And if we're not hitting that amount of people in it in January, February, March, and April for those first 4 months, then that'll give the program committee an idea of if it should be cut or not.
I think that makes sense.
What line that on?
The nice. Maybe.
So we're only spending. We've only spent 3,800 on that, right?
Okay.
Through the end of September, it's 38.33.
Is that realistic for the whole year is out? Like, would that be representative of the year?
By the end of the year, we will have spent probably around 5,600. Maybe a little less because she is also coaching high school swim and she has kids in Fonda districts and state, so she's missed a few days. One of the goals though, would be to have a trained backup so that we don't have those gaps. So I would still expect that 5,600-ish to be probably pretty consistent.
Well, how is it being communicated to people that do master swim that there will be a day where she won't be here?
So, like, she just sent us an email this morning that she won't be here on Friday, and so it's something she's already worked out with the class that if she's not going to be here, she just leaves a workout for them, and then they still have a workout to do when they come here, and we post it for them. Our lifeguards do.
Okay, if that's the case, then why aren't they paying master swim versus lap swim costs?
Because she's still giving it to them, the workout fee.
Because we're paying for
She's-
the service.
She
We're paying
has,
for her experience.
and she's already created that workout for that class. She has let us know too that this next year is probably going to be her last year doing it. And I wonder if that has something to do with the new pool getting built down south.
Probably, but
But she's also, the problem right now is she really likes, it's not a problem, it's great for the high school. She really likes coaching the high school. So now it's 2 trips a day from Coopville when she does do it, right? Early morning, and then she's here in the afternoon, and then she's gone. She's really enjoying that coaching right now. So
I gotta back up on the goal of the master swim to just pay for the coach. I don't necessarily agree with that fully, because we have to treat that program just like any other program. I'm sorry? Yeah, lane fee as well. And that's the reason I was looking, because, okay, we spend 5,600, we're gonna make 10,000, but that doesn't include the lane fees and the administrative costs, because they are still occupying lanes, taking it away from what's.
right,
So-
but you guys aren't revisiting it again until
I
February.
understand that, but
So it was just me to give you guys a metric of what number was, just so that you had the knowledge, not that that would be the program cost or anything. That you'd have a metric to judge, okay, well, this is how many this class needs to break even on the coach. Now you'll know what you have to build or what you want to build the program fee around based on that information,
Okay.
that metric. Does that make sense?
yeah,
Sorry if I misstated that before.
I may have only listened to half the statement too.
Are we all good to continue moving on?
Alrighty, on the next page, we get into the recreation revenue. Basketball, this year, right now, year to date, it looks really, really low because registration had just opened. But based on, the 10% increase and the growth we've seen previously, that 46,200 should be relatively solid. We fully expect that we'll meet the 42,000, for the 2025 season. Basketball is one of those weird programs for us because registration goes in 1 year and the program actually runs the beginning of the following.
But we normally fill it completely.
Yes. 56 and 50.
can we back up a little bit? So our total revenue for that jumped up significantly with the 10%, kind of the same conversation we just had, but
I'm looking at around 472 for the total after I did that same formula on all the revenue, which is like a $60,000 difference.
Basketball?
No, for all.
No, for- He's saying for line 52, right?
52, line
Yeah.
52, yeah. So with that, take the 9 months, make it 12 months, and then give 10%, they get 472, 854. So that's a big difference between 535. It seems like it's still there when you look at the bottom line, because there's a excess, if I'm reading that correctly, of 282. We're still there, but I mean, it's gonna change.
Back up to 17, 18 and, well, 17, 19 and 20. 17 and 20, well, no, 17 and 19, I'm sorry. Those are right where they should be, within plus or minus a couple percent. So I don't know that I would reduce those down. I think the 10% increase for those is
Well,
appropriate.
I didn't reduce them down.
Okay.
I took the,
You took
for
the,
number 17, I took 86,651 divided by 9, multiplied by 12, plus 10%. So for that one, where you have 134.90, I have 127, $1,000 off.
and no, I think that makes sense. That is giving it a very linear approach, and we know that these numbers are often not linear. Like basic memberships, they're sitting at 87%. That is largely, I believe, because we sell a lot of memberships in the summer that drop off as we head toward fall. So I wouldn't say, oh, we're ahead of the game on that and adjust based on that.
Yeah, my number's actually higher on memberships than yours.
And that's probably why.
5%, right? But there's not gonna be a lot of new memberships towards the last couple of months of the year, is what you're saying.
We'll stick
Yeah, we'll see an
Yeah.
uptick because of Christmas.
because of the levy passing. So I think we did have some people that were paused, knock on wood that it continues to be a good number. And then we do see a lot of people that purchase memberships or punch cards as gifts around the holidays. So that is where we'll pick some of that back up again.
I know that I wasn't personally aware that we were closing a pool at 3.
We're doing that because of the lack of people coming in to swim at night on those weekends in this time of year. So in the summer, it goes back up to 9 o'clock at night.
Not on Saturday.
Oh, not on
Are
Saturday.
there
Yeah.
window? Weddings are usually pretty often, aren't they?
Well, it's because we already offer an open swim during the day. So what we tend to see is people here during the day, but that's why we started dropping it back at night, because we would have 5 guards here and literally let everybody go because we barely needed any for 2. So when you're looking at the cost of the lifeguard versus having the pool open that late at night on a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon, it just didn't make sense at the time to keep doing that. Now, if we start, and this is what I've always said to Julie, if we start seeing the afternoon swim start busting at the seams, where we're having a ton of people and we're having to turn people away because we don't have enough room based on having enough guards here. So say that I have 6 guards here and now I'm fully staffed and we don't then that's when I would look at having another one later that night. But it doesn't make sense for us to, in my operation experience, to have it, getting 30 people in the day for the open swim and then 15 at night for the open swim. It just doesn't make financial sense to be open that late. I haven't received any requests from any comment cards for later openings, or the ones that we received before was not having open swim at earlier times. And so that's why we added the one on Wednesday nights, because originally we didn't have that. But when we start getting in, or if we start getting in, we will look at that and say, oh, okay, if we do have a group of people that seem like they wanted to have an open swim, because what they were frustrated was that the open swims were so late at night, and that they had younger kids and wanted to come earlier. And so we were like, oh, okay, so that's why we added the afternoon. And
I understand your reasoning. I just had no idea that we were shutting down that early.
so she normally puts it in her report when the schedule is going to change. But if you're in, and we'd have to look at this too. And this is a good time to bring up this question because we just had it this weekend. If you're, because we send out an email when the schedule is changing to the fall schedule, when it's changing to the winter schedule, so she can look at your account and see if you've accepted those announcements. But then we also talked about it the other day and asked, do you want us to just keep providing it in the packet like she normally does in her report?
That I was thinking about just getting the emails.
Well, I had both,
Yeah.
Well, and I think how to put it in my report when we switched back to fall this time, because it was not a change. It's the way we operated last year and I think the year before even, where as soon as we fell back into that fall routine, that went away. So it wasn't anything new or different. So I may not have thought
To
to.
those of us who are doing.
Yes, yes, but I may not have thought to notate it, so I apologize.
But we did just have this question though over the weekend because we were sending out a volleyball announcement because we couldn't get into one of the closets and it delayed us getting the games going this weekend. And so I asked her, hey, can you send out a I'm sorry email to all the patrons to let them know? And so she did, and she goes, am I supposed to add the board to that? And I said, no, I don't think so. And she goes, well, they just asked to be added to the distribution list. And I said, I thought they meant the BOC agenda distribution list, which is a completely separate Excel file that we literally copy and paste to do the agenda.
Like, I think what I was looking for was communication specifically about the district and what happened and last minute changes and what's going out to our patrons. What are the patrons seeing?
So the patrons, we don't do the agenda through the patrons. We do the board created an Excel distribution list long before I got here. And that's who I add to the agenda. And that's where I put you guys. I added everybody to that after that meeting. The other one goes out automatically through Civic Rec when we click a to communicate button. And when the person sets up the account, they have chosen to receive announcements or not. If you want to be added to that, then we can set you all up with accounts if you don't already have them. And then you should get all those updates that way already. That's why I said she could check on that because that's the other way that we do that. But since I was only sending it out to volleyball people, would you have wanted that?
I think it's prudent for us to know what's happening in the district, just in case somebody.
I'd rather have extra emails that might not always pertain to me, but have the information available for when it does.
I have definitely learned that the less information I have, the more someone asks me about it.
Yeah, so, and I think all of us can just go set up our own Civic Rec account and that's.
No, she just knows that she'll have to enter you manually
Yeah.
in those because if it's only going to volleyball, unless you've registered for volleyball, you won't get it.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
And so,
Yep, and I would, just as, so you guys are all aware, I have found it hit or miss if we manually CC someone on it. Just
we're
because,
actually looking into it right now.
yeah, because there's been several times where Jay has said, oh, I copied you in on it, and I never saw it. And I know that I was copying our rec coordinator in on things when I was sending it, and he was not getting them. So it seems to be a glitch where we manually go in, especially I think if they have to be, because I'd have to put you guys in the BCC section. I'm not sure, and we will test it out, but
The emails are created and generated in Civic Rec. And so when I started sending the emails for volleyball, she would get one and then like the other day she didn't get one. And so we put in a ticket request to see what was going on with it because I copied the front desk in on it too, so that they had the information. So that's what she's saying. And right now it might be a little hit or miss until we figure out what's happening.
Okay. Say, let's keep on moving on because we're on page 3 and we're now.
So lines 56 and 57 for kickball and pickleball, those are highlighted with a to be determined. There are programs that Jay and I discussed she would like to see us bring back, but we haven't done the worksheets for them yet.
We're gonna remove ultimate frisbee out of there because at the time, ultimate frisbee was something we were gonna do in conjunction with South Whidbey Parks and Rec. But then the person who did that left South Whidbey Parks and Rec, and now South Whidbey doesn't run that anymore. So, and then I tried to get it going the next 2 years after that, and it didn't take off. So we're gonna remove that one.
The next two lines, 58 and 59 for NFL flag football and volleyball. Those are 10% increases for the football, and then the volleyball is a 10% increase on the budgeted amount. I know the year-to-date shows higher than that, so I considered using that. I chose not to because we did have to refund several families due to the scheduling changes with volleyball. So I think that 35.25 is closer to accurate.
Although we've got a request to add somebody a month after
Right
it
there.
started.
Line 60 for day camp, I added 10% from this year's number two. Soccer, I added 10% as well. That is what is it called, Jay?
Challenger soccer.
Yes, Challenger Soccer, thank you.
That's a contracted camp that we bring in, and they just pay us to market their program for them, but they provide all the staff and equipment.
The Blue Heron Booster Club NWAC line 68, that 21,187 is projected based on their usage over a 12-month period.
No, this doesn't cover a lane increase, right?
I don't believe so.
So that's part of my question, that the past boards have said that with the new levy, they were going to come up with new lane rental fees. So does this board want me to make the club aware that those lane fees might go up in 2025, but that we don't have a calculation for it yet?
Yes, because that gives us the option.
Okay.
That's because we're not treating anybody.
970, 72 candy and snacks, concessions, walkers, open swim rentals. Those I bumped up to 10%. Same thing with pool group rentals. So this one, I know it only shows the 311.96. There is still a payment from Special Olympics due to come in that will bring that up to that 600 number. So that's why I left it that way.
Thanks for answering that question before.
Before you ask for it.
Sometimes you can get a sense of where that's gonna go.
Right. I'm 73. The full rental. 74, the private party rental is one that probably needs to adjust back down. I had it higher initially, anticipating that as we rolled into fall and winter, we would see an increase in those full facility rentals that go into this line. That has not happened quite like I expected, so I will be lowering that back down before the regular meeting.
Like, that stuck out as concerning, but I think when you look at the overall line item, we're doing pretty good.
It is. It just has not done quite what I was anticipating. And I'm wondering if some of that is levy hesitation and maybe we'll see an increase.
And that's why this budget is a look back, even after we set it, throughout the year, we're gonna revisit it and we'll see. Projections are just that. None of us have a crystal ball, so.
Yep.
And with the information that we have.
I'm just gonna say, I got one, but I don't know that. Yeah.
Just so you're aware, we are beating last year's number for it already. So just in case you needed that.
So we are going somewhere.
Yeah.
We're-
Well, it's
That's the story.
we saw a decrease in it last year. Was the first year that we saw a big decrease, but we have seen those numbers in the 13,000 before. So we're just wondering, was this the year that everybody could afford to leave, right? Everybody came out of COVID, they started working again. We saw some people day tripping out of here, but this seemed to be a big year. I don't know if the rest of you noticed this, where a lot of people left town. And so that's what we wondered why we didn't have as many birthdays again this year.
We really have one.
Fire department, my
Well, I'm just
district.
curious, the view and room rentals,
What number?
number 76.
People rent this room.
Yeah, I was curious.
So they do, if, say they're doing the pool party rental and they want to stay in here longer than what is given to them as part of the pool party rental,
Gotcha.
if that makes sense.
So you buy a 2-hour party and then they're like, I want 3 hours, then you,
Yeah, or we want to stay here after the pool closes and just, be with our family a little bit, because they have family coming in or whatnot. And next year too, we're gonna try to have a Gaga ball party pit rental as a birthday party rental for people who want to come do like the Gaga ball pit and have somebody teach the kids how to do it. This is a very popular game.
Mhm.
Jamie explained it to me, and I have no. Like, I just still see babies in diapers.
Just to give you an example, my college age kids and their boyfriends played it at a pumpkin farm that we went to when and they were the only people playing it. And then they started playing it and all these kids went,
or after.
Maybe we can teach them to play.
The after party.
What is the
I do not know that we've ever been.
the fire?
for this room. When we tried to give them, so my first year here, that's what I tried to get is fire code numbers, and they're really not willing to give them anymore.
Why?
I know, yeah.
Because I think if something happens in a building that had like, say the fire department said you could have this many in, and then people died because that was too many, then it now holds them responsible for that. So they were like, because we were trying to figure it out with COVID, and we ended up having to measure the linear feet from wall to wall. Like it was this whole.
Yeah, you could put like 12 people if you do the 6 feet distance.
Yeah. Yeah,
So I'm just curious, because like if we're doing room rentals, like we had a cap, like there's 500 people here, standing room only versus like 50 people. It's
Where you go?
I've seen it really packed.
Well, and people that they can move the chairs out, and they very rarely move this rack out. So
It's packed in there some days. I was just curious.
500 people in this room.
Yeah.
There's like people
All right,
standing on
Julie,
people.
back to you.
I know.
Oh,
So the retail I do have up higher than I would based on just adding 10%. This I left higher because the anticipation was that we would start selling logo merchandise and whatnot. We paused that idea this year because of all of the uncertainty over the metro. So that's why I have it high. If you guys would like me to adjust it down lower, I can, and we can bump it back up as needed.
It's such a low number overall that.
and now that she brought up that we were talking about it, and I just want you guys to have in mind finding logo apparel with our current colors for the levy and stuff was hard to do. Even though I really like the color palette, I just want you to know that like trying to get that logo in green, like I had to do a little Canva magic because most places don't have those colors as a choice to pick.
Yeah. Teal?
Yeah, I know. Well, because it's more of a greeny teal than a teal, like a typical teal.
And a bluey too.
You know what I mean. The balloons that we dropped for opening night were way more expensive, or for the open house.
Yeah.
So
Were they just mixed colors?
no, they were specialty colors, so we had to go to a specialty balloon shop.
Now are these the old logos or are these the new colors that?
Teal and the pearly white. That's part of the
color package that we chose
the
for
color
through
package that we chose.
GoDaddy or whatever.
Yeah.
So they did from the new color palette.
Yep.
Which just created new problems.
Yep. Because they're not the primary colors. And most, like when you're buying logo apparel, Most of it is primary color.
Yeah, blue polo shirts with a white logo on it and call it a good day.
That's what we done.
That's what I'm good.
I just wanted them to know that going into the future, the logo apparel.
Yeah.
Um, So the rest of the lines on that page, 78 through 85, those are not things that we typically really budget for.
Give me just an idea on number 82, what a miscellaneous revenue looks like.
I do it. Do it.
Okay, so
$2,000.
I'd like more of that.
that was the carnival tickets. And it's a complete wash. Because that was a straight payment over to the chamber.
It's not near as fun.
I know, right? I just took all the fun away. Something else that might go in, like other miscellaneous revenue though, would be say somebody accidentally uses their district card for a personal purchase and they reimburse it. There's not a place for it to go.
Actually, that happen is when I'm using my Prime membership to purchase something for, because I'm too cheap to go buy a business Prime membership.
My personal Prime membership several years ago got billed to my district card because they just went to the next card available. So, I mean, but it's very rare for things like that to happen.
Okay.
On the next page, the interest section, lines 88 through 91. That is from our funds that are invested with the county. And that's just assuming a 10% increase. I feel like there might be a worksheet we can use to try to calculate that more precisely.
Reach out to Tony, he'll give it to you.
They're generally very small numbers.
$6.
I know.
Yeah.
And now we are on to the expenses, which the recreation expenses and wages, and then it goes back to expenses, gets really confusing the way that QuickBooks ordered them. So I apologize in advance. You know, that thing called Springbrook that we talked about earlier? Very excited for more order. So 107 basketball expenses, I have it as to be determined. We just need to verify that we don't need any equipment for the coming year beyond t-shirts or jerseys. And we need to quote that out. So we should have a solid number in there.
I already had reached out to those people, they've had it back.
But hang on, so where would we?
My idea is if we could do a USDA grant, because it could be like 2%. And I think if we keep it,
Where's the where are we physically putting the bag?
between these two buildings.
So we'd have to get approval.
I realize it's a wish list, but there's also,
What do you say? Permitting isn't the thing. We can always ask for forgiveness. There's a lot of forgiveness.
but there's also, maybe Clover Valley Park.
Yeah.
Maybe. I like the idea of it right there because it would give us other programming space and we're not. Yeah. And maybe the selling point is the center could use it too.
Basketball expense, you guys can buy more scoreboard.
So I actually reached out to them last year and said, hey, it's a problem because I have been using these type of scoreboards for years and I've never seen one go bad like they have. And so I said, you could look at our record. They sent us 3 free ones that came in right after basketball.
Yeah.
Useful. Yeah. So I do not foresee buying new scoreboards
Okay, yeah.
this year.
Just last year
But-
was a nightmare at basketball.
Literally, and so when I called them, I said, I don't know if you're having the same problem. It turns out we're not the only one that had lodged the complaint, that it's literally a manufacturing change. And so they're trying to find a new person to manufacture it for them. Because I've been working with BSN for close to 30 years now. And it's that exact same scoreboard, but the difference is I don't know, is this too much? Do you want to move on? Okay.
Sorry.
No.
I don't know if it's anything.
Never mind.
seeing all the shiny things that obviously you guys are all seeing.
Well,
Very
last year
interesting.
for basketball, and, we spent most of the season having a backup plan mid-game to transfer the score down.
I have a few I didn't even take out of boxes for
Yeah.
your site.
Okay, 110, 111 kickball and pickleball expenses. Again, those will get filled in with the worksheet. 113 volleyball expenses.
So one of the things that I'm asking the school, and they haven't responded to me, is we use their nets for volleyball, and one of their nets is really ratty, and I asked them if they needed us to purchase a net for them. They helped purchase the blocks for us. I feel like it's goodwill, and so just so you know that will be added if they want us to do that.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, which is why that is linked still.
Okay.
Hoping to get an answer to that. 115 basketball. This is salary and wages for this next little bit here. That's adding a 10% increase over what we spent this year. That was our total number there at the 8803. Day camp, like,
Quick question, sorry. Because with other expenses, we've got things have gone by 10% or more. We're not looking at a 10% wage increase across the board. So are we looking at expanding this program? Is that why we bumped that wage expense up 10%?
there is the potential for about a 5% wage increase between longevity and the cost of living that was approved. And then the other 5% does go toward if we need additional staffing with the program.
And the 115 is just the refs, right? Or the refs and site managers.
And site supervisors.
Are the
Do you know
basketball
who-
coaches just for basketball?
Yeah, they're reversible. Yeah, but they're basketball specific. Yeah, they're reversible.
The referees?
Oh, I thought you said jerseys. No, I've literally lost hearing and need hearing aids, but and I was trying to read your lips and I need new glasses.
Wow.
Maybe it's vision and vision and hearing.
Referees and coaches.
Site supervisor.
Site supervisors. We don't pay coaches.
Okay. My question is, you were talking about longevity, but if they're temporary seasonal employees, do they get longevity?
Some of them are staff that are regular
Okay.
staff that work in that department. So then, yes, those would.
Or they work in more than one department. So like currently one of our swim instructors is also our volleyball site supervisor. She'll also be our basketball supervisor and most likely will be a swim instructor that entire time.
Wow.
And this is her, third year with us?
Okay.
Nice. We lost Suki and her mom.
Mm.
They moved.
Oh, really? Well, that's 3.
Sorry, Julie, go ahead.
Okay.
They can't.
Yes, day camp. So 10% increase for the day camp leaders and the day camp managers based on projected growth to be determined on the assistant manager. The thought being that with the program continuing to grow, we will need to add that position back in. So we need to look at what that number actually will need to be. Next section down, kickball, pickleball, and a recade. If we do steam camp again, determining what those would need to be through the worksheets is still in the works. Line 126, the NFL flag football, that's just adding 10% staff increase based on growth. 129, the recreation coordinator. This is what we talked about earlier, bumping it up at $25 an hour as a full-time hourly position. Ends up being that 52,000. And we went, depending on the person and their experience, we might not start them out at the 25. That 25 is just the max on the salary range for the position currently.
Up to 128. What? Our revenue from steam camp?
So it dive into the day camp, I think.
The one line item that actually does that. Everything.
It was not intended to, but for whatever reason it is. Bring on Springbrook, please.
Good Lord, listen, if you get Springbrook, you get no more complaining.
We'll have to find something new to complain about. That sounds like a challenge. On the next page, the line 130 recreation specialist non-sports. This had originally for 2024 was budgeted at 2,500. I chatted with Jay and we put it back in at that same 2,500. This would be the person to facilitate arts and crafts, cooking, photography, whatever non-sports related recreation.
She asked me about it. She was the lady, for those of you who were at Chamber event last summer. She was the person doing the live painting. Yeah, so she is very interested in doing this. So,
Listen, we can't go another year without it.
And this is part
Well,
of the day camp.
okay, but no, this is just, but part of the problem is we are in a hold position because the school district put a hold on any new use of space because they wanted to redo the contract. Now, we've been told that that contract is supposed to be coming anytime now. We still haven't seen it. So that's why we haven't done, with the loss of staffing and not having any place to do it anymore. We were like, okay, well, we'll just wait. So we put it in there just in case we still will be able to do that in the future.
This is a just in case placeholder.
Line 132, training recreation. It's kind of also a just in case placeholder at $1,000. Assuming that we had a lot of new recreation only staff that we would need to get CPR first aid training for. Since that is something that we would have to pay them an hourly wage for. This year, you can see we've used $20 whole of it because everyone we've had working in rec was, for the most part, working in another department. I think we have one employee that has done rec only for us this year. Line 134 volleyball, that's a 10% increase, again, based on potential growth in the program and having one staff member that is working in it that does other departments to get the longevity and whatnot.
We not do a budget adjustment to include volleyball?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Did we, so it says zero budget for the year, did we not?
Because I didn't see the volleyball supplies because it would be volleyball club like
This is wages.
134, right? That's what you're
Yeah,
talking
this is
about?
wages.
Wages.
Salary and wages.
Oh, okay.
It's so it's showing zero because it was through the end of September and in October.
Yeah, we delayed it.
It'll show later.
I also, you'll see volleyball expense though too.
Yes. 37 and 138, the day camp expense and kayak program expense. The day camp expense is the 15,000, which is a large increase because this year and even in year two, we utilized a lot of leftover supplies from the first year. We've kind of run out of that, so it's going to be pretty much a full refresh.
Wait, are we not on salaries and wages still?
So sorry, it 135 total salaries and wages, and now it goes back to regular expenses. This is the part where I said it's confusing. I'm sorry. Which is where Jay got confused too.
Well, yeah, because I have already jumped ahead.
The kayak program expense line 138, that is the little safety booklets that they get with the course. And again, it is something that we're due for a refresh on because we have run out of our stock of those. I think that $600 amount usually lasts for 2 or 3 years, I want to say.
Yeah.
Have any questions about recreation expenses before I?
Line 140, what is your proposed budget? Because mine is blank.
Oh, it did not total it. I think it maybe did not total because there are several to be determined items in there still.
Oh, because there's no zero.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could just have that for the next time we sit down with this, that would be great.
For sure.
I don't understand 139.
I mean, the,
Total.
It's kind of another subtotally.
Right, but it says zero and there's numbers.
no other category anywhere else. I think that's just a total of all the
Yeah.
other stuff.
Yeah, I think so.
And there's for other.
It's one of those, for some reason, when QuickBooks generates this, it likes to give us duplicates of things to just confuse us.
I've been here 4.5 years and I still don't have QuickBooks completely figured out why it does things it does. Because I'm not used to it.
Well, and one of the, yes,
But I think there are bookkeepers out there that don't have a handle on QuickBooks.
yes. Well, yeah, and one thing with our version of QuickBooks, it's a very old antiquated version that is not even supported anymore, so there's no updates to it. Salary and wages, 143, executive director, that increase, is definitely above the 10%. We looked at, and I did not bring that notebook in here. We looked at wages for that position, that number of years experience within the state through a couple of different sources. We also looked at what would be kind of the starting. We looked at what Southwoodby is at for their executive director. This seemed like an appropriate number based on all of that. The low was, I want to say 88 or 89,000 on up to 168 or 186.
I would like to see that information.
Oh.
Just, since we're making that determination, when we've done this in the past with some of my other organizations, the board always had the access to see what were the comparable cities or the comparable, experience levels and things like that. And so I'm not disputing anything, but just for
Yeah.
transparency.
Yeah, no, for
I'd
sure.
like to see what went into those computations.
Yeah, I can email those out to you guys.
And also, can you give us the data, especially for the salaried positions? Can you send us the data on the past 5 years, what the salaries were, and then what we're looking at now?
For all the salaries?
Yeah, just so we can see.
Historical.
Yeah,
Do you want 5 or 4? Because the 5th year they were closed for a lot of it for the. Was that right?
2019. 2019, we had no salaried positions.
2020 is where I was thinking because we were closed for COVID. I was the only salaried position at that time.
Yeah, just for context.
Okay.
Yeah, just go back 5 years for all the salaried positions. And we can make the inference when we see it that 2020 did a thing.
Okay, well, in 2019, there were no salaried positions.
Did we not have an ED in 2019?
We had, well, was he? And then did they? We had an interim.
Can you toss that in there too?
or be approved salary, given that COVID wouldn't happen.
There still would have only been one for the ED in 2020.
Contacts.
Recreation manager, we zeroed out, eliminating that position. That goes back to the conversation earlier, having a full-time rec coordinator and having the head lifeguard move to full-time. 145 business manager, that 80,000 is a little bit above that minimum threshold for a large employer because of pre-existing longevity. And then also the increased duties with the swim lesson coordinator, and we did touch on the aerobics oversight in the conversation earlier. 147, 148, well, 147 client services coordinator. That brings that position up to a full 35 hours a week, with that wage there being where that position would anticipate going to. Client service specialists, line 148, that did increase by the 10%. So that's that same adjustment for both of those.
What is a standard COLA?
This year it was 2.33%, I believe. And then,
But if you're not doing it every year. then it's
Yeah.
more.
yeah,
Yeah.
and there's a longevity in there and then potential increase in number of hours needed. The client service specialist one, there are times where we have to double staff based on events. And then also there's some coverage in there for their shift changes because they're scheduled so that they get 10 to 15 minutes to roll over. And we try to stagger those at times of day where it could be quicker, and as soon as they're done, they clock out and go. There are also times where it takes longer because it's crazy up there sometimes.
Yeah.
152, the BOC admin assistant. That one again is at 35 hours a week at just over $20 an hour. The rec aid advertising, we did increase that by 10%. One of the things that I mentioned to Jay is I don't want us to become like some organizations I've witnessed, some individuals where you achieve your goal and you disappear until you need to be public again. I want us to continue to be out there and promoting programs and growth and being that presence in the community. So we'll still very much need that. Aerobics instructors, that one, again, most of these I just did that 10% across the board, and then individually we'll look at fine tuning. This is one that I do intend to run a worksheet for aerobics programs as a whole before the regular meeting, and probably bring that line down some based on the class projections. The next set, 155 through 157, that again is if we had an instructor trainer for Red Cross courses, which we will not have. The kayak instructor, which that goes into usually line 159, that again is a determination of that program worksheet. And I need to look back and see what it was the last time we ran it and throw that number in there. 163, 164, well, through 166, those are the swim lesson numbers for private instructors and group lesson instructors. I did the 10% above, but again, that's one of those things looking at the worksheet and class projection, they may be able to come back down a little bit. Also knowing that we need to continue adding classes. 173 through 179, those are the training for the aquatic side and front desk staff, as well as maintenance and custodial. I did the lifeguards at the 10% above where we're budgeted. One of the reasons why you're seeing that at 63%, and I still went ahead and did that, is because we are really hoping to offer an additional lifeguard course before the end of the year. That's going to bump that number up quite a bit. And this 14,000 doesn't quite take into consideration the full amount of lifeguard training in service that they should be getting per month. But it does fall more in line with what we have actually been able to achieve this year.
We just go back, I got a quick question. Where were we? Number 167,
Yes.
the total WSI instructor.
Mhm.
So that total 56,000, that's even greater than an overall 10%.
I'll check that because that is a larger jump there than it should.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
50,000.
It did not. I can see what it did, and I don't know, this is a formula error perhaps in the Excel, because on 167, for the 2024 budget, it did not add in the 12,000 for private lesson instructor. And it added it in on the proposed budget column. That's why it's such a vast difference.
But on the private lessons, it went up. That 10% went from 12,000 to 13,200. So even if you rolled that into there, that would still exceed that.
I think what she's saying is that it didn't add, if you just look at the 2024 budget column, that 12,000 didn't add into the total.
Correct.
So the current year's private lessons number isn't added to 30, so 39 should go up by $12,000.
Yes. Line 167.
So,
So that should be 51,327
so it didn't add it into the 2024 budget line, but it did add it into the. proposed
into the
budget.
proposed, yes.
Right.
It's wonky.
Yeah,
That is wonky.
it might be because the skipped line, 164
might
being
be.
blank, sometimes
might
Excel
be.
does that.
Okay.
Check that for me. Figure out why it is doing that. This is why it's so helpful to have multiple sets of eyes. For the lifeguard section, line 180, that's adding 10% to the budgeted amount. Again, that is one that we maybe will be able to adjust down just depending on where we're shaking out as we get into this fall time period. I think that we had left it a little high, assuming some larger swims and additional rentals that we're not seeing. Senior lifeguards, line 181, I did increase that by 25% instead of just the 10% for additional coverages. This year, we only really utilized that during the summer months. Moving forward, especially with where we're at with staffing and availability, I would anticipate that we'll need to increase senior guard usage and shift that head guard usage to a different time of day. So that seemed an appropriate starting point for that. 82, the head lifeguard, as we discussed, bringing that to potentially be full-time hourly. That 2150 is based on the current rate and then a longevity increase that they do have coming up as well as COLA. 183, director of maintenance, we discussed that meets the threshold for a larger employer. That is based on. He heard my name. That's based on the threshold for a larger employer and being a new employee position. The janitorial lines 184 through 187. 186 especially is really just kind of a stab in the dark, not knowing what the plan for a shutdown maintenance would be. And when Shane's back in town, we'll be able to discuss in a little more detail and potentially fine tune that number.
I think that one's gonna grow. Because he was talking about, he needed to reline the entire pool, which was a huge expense.
Before we can.
Only 187. We had budgeted 8,700. So far, year to date, we've got 14,800. And then the proposed budget drops that back down to about 10% more than the proposed budget. So talk to me about where that almost 15,000 comes in and why we're not looking at that.
This was in my notes from the budget amendment, and I haven't circled back to fix it yet. So there was a time period where when the maintenance assistant first came on board, that he was clocking in only under shutdown maintenance because he wasn't officially hired as the maintenance assistant. And then there was also a time period where he was working at Clover Valley and he was not selecting his location correctly. So there's some journal entrying to do to realign that. So part of what is in that maintenance assistant line currently will be moving to Clover Valley, which is why the Clover Valley number looks so. That's right.
Did you like it when we had the answer?
I do. Very much so.
189 adult swim team coach or master swim coach. That is that 10% increase, and that is also based partially. She will get longevity at some point in that, as well as COLA, and it is also based on that probability of bringing in another coach for training that can be that backup. Enlistment coordinator, that is based on 20 hours a week at the 2075, which is the current staff members projected that they'll go to. If there were a staffing change in that position, that would come down some, but this is the max it would be. 193 unemployment paid to ESD. This 8,000 is between 700 and 800 more than what we paid out for unemployment during COVID. The auditor very strongly recommends that we put something in there because we are a reimbursable employer. So this is just representation of that. I don't see much likelihood that we'll actually use it. Next page on payroll benefits for retirement. These I do need to go in and adjust because these numbers were calculated based on lower wage amounts for 197, 198, and 199. But this is based on the 5% matching that is the maximum that the district will match. I don't have feedback from any staff member on if they would choose to participate, so that could adjust down depending. Section 20.112 sick pay. There will need to be adjustments made for the salary positions. And then the part-time staff, that is just the 10% increase based on what we budgeted. Those are super hard to predict because they earn 1 hour for every 40 hours they work, and we don't know who's going to get sick and we don't know who's going to choose to use it. One thing, employing a lot of teenagers. I always joke that part of my job is teaching them how to have a job. And so educating them on, hey, you do have this benefit you can choose to use. But it's still a spotty whether they use it or not.
What is our policy on retirement? Did
It
you say
is,
matching?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, so the current policy is for full-time exempt and full-time hourly, the district will match up to 5%. When Jay was hired, her contract gave her 7% retirement with no matching requirement. This is something that was changed by a previous board.
Okay, so current state is that
5% matching. And then,
It's your grandfathered at 7.
No.
No, so they took away the 7 and gave you
Yes.
5.
Only if I match.
only if she matches, so. Mhm. This is something,
She feels awkward.
I do feel awkward. I mean, my recommendation at the time and after consulting with our insurance and legal counsel, which insurance and legal counsel both did not think making a negative change to someone's compensation was wise on the part of the district. The board chose to take that action anyway. But yes, I feel very awkward in saying that.
we just need to know what kind of data. Like it's just it's information.
And I know people are weird about money and benefits and salaries, but we have to be able to have honest conversations here. So, and we are not privy to, many of us, so we need to know what's been done, what's been redone, and what's being asked. And so we've got to be able to have those conversations honestly and openly.
What?
And if we need to do that in executive non-taped session, that's one of the functions that you can do in executive session. So that's something.
No, what I'm saying that I felt like I was punished and I felt like I wasn't given a chance to negotiate. There was no let's have a negotiation about this. It was, this is what it's going to be. And when I first got here, there was negotiation on my contract. So to not have any negotiation and then be presented felt like a punishment. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that, but I also realize it's no one's here real fault of that. So one of the choices that was given is, and I understand that part of the reason is because they wanted to move, originally they thought they were going to move away from the contract, and that in the future, if they ever had to hire a new executive, they would just do it. but that I understood that I would still be grandfathered in along the way. And so there is the possibility to create within your power to create an executive, oh, boy, I'm losing the word, level. When you're looking at your exempt level, your full-time without benefits, your full-time with benefits, there you do have that option to do that. That board just chose not to use that instead.
What was the lead up to that? How did it happen?
I don't know because it suddenly came at a meeting and
Was your contract up for renewal? Or was it-
no, because they hadn't wanted to update the contract after was it my first or second year? Because they weren't changing anything per se. And then I don't know where the conversation came to.
I believe there was a board member that questioned the legality of just giving the retirement and thought that it should need to be matched.
We did,
Spoke to legal and said that was.
and we talked to, because our retirement goes through the state, so we talked to them as well, and we provided that documentation to the board. That you don't have to have matching.
Are you on a contract right now?
Well, the second contract was never signed, but according to our attorney, it is still good.
Get that?
Because when they started talking about it, I thought, okay, well, now is going to be my opportunity to discuss it, right? Discuss my thoughts on it. And then that did not end well.
So you've been working here for 4.5 years, you had 1 year contract and that's it?
I did so after my second year, I think it was, they decided to re-look at my salary. No, it was my third because James was on the board. Right? They decided to look at it because there was a conversation that, and this is the part where it gets muddled. There was never any discussion about giving employees medical coverage during the remaining of the last cycle. What I was told is it would come in the next levy cycle, I was okay with that. That's what I agreed to. Somewhere along the line, some board members thought that it was wrong that I didn't have health insurance. I never put that in their head. It was never a conversation that I instigated. But so they started having that conversation. And then it went from getting the director to getting all the full-time employees. And so that's how we ended up with the policy that we ended up with, but it was never the intention. When I was hired, that was the way it was going to go. And so that's where I don't know. So then when they came back and they had us put it in for my salary the year, that was at the end of the second year that we put it in. I think we put in like 25,000 and that's what the board approved. And then in last year's discussion about it, they decided to offer it to everybody, made the policy of 80% for employee, 50% per family. But even at that amount, at what we were being quoted, we couldn't afford that. So we don't have anybody on insurance. Does that answer your question? So they looked at it, and so then they decided to say to me, okay, well, we gave you a bump in your salary, and we're just going to consider your insurance as part of your salary now. And that's what they
I guess
said.
I'm looking for a short answer. Is there a valid contract? Or are you just,
Yeah, legally valid.
and when does that expire?
It doesn't.
So the legal contract that we are currently under is that says 5% matching.
No, 5%.
7 was the initial offer.
Would you like me to send out all of the iterations of her contract?
Please.
Okay.
And when you do, please make a note of which one.
Which one is
actually
which,
the
yes.
current, yeah.
Yes, will do.
I'm going to move, since we've been doing this almost 2 hours. that we take a short 10-minute recess. I cannot feel my feet.
Please.
Quote, Commissioner Larson cannot feel his butt.
And somehow I ended the meeting without touching it.
No, it's go down to your teams. It's right there. Yeah.
Thank gosh.
Yeah.
We are going to.
It's under.
We're going to stop recording, right? And that
You can, yeah, so if you go to record and transcribe,
They look like a pineapple and like.
I would just leave it. Just let it, because people can fast forward in 10 minutes, so just mute.
But
You're mic'd.
Back in at 7.
where do we stop?
Okay, kind of.
Sick pay, yeah.
Well, I have a
The
question on
200s.
retirement still. Okay. One more question for retirement. For number 2, line item 200, full-time and non-exempt employees. If they were to sign up, how many employees would we have eligible?
This is based on 2.
2 employees?
Yes. There is the potential I have in my notes, the potential to add a third full-time position to see what that would look like, but this is based on 2.
And as this reflects, currently no one is opted in for.
Correct. Sick pay is the same thing. I need to go in and make some adjustments based on those potential salaries.
What is your guys' sick pay rate as
It's the same.
Figure
1
that's
hour
Washington
for
State,
every
yeah.
40?
That's Washington State law.
But you get 2. Oh.
I get 12 hours every time I get a paycheck.
And employers
Of sick
can,
pay?
so employers
It's not
can
Washington
choose.
sick pay, right?
Oh, no.
No, employers can choose to have a different rate. That is the minimum. So,
Why do you work?
Yeah. Yeah. If I got 12 hours for every 40 hours I work,
Working out not to make that back up and
vacation, same thing again. I need to adjust based on those potential salary increases. I based those on somebody using the full potential of their vacation. That covers any potential payouts for staff leaving.
what's your vacation rate?
So I believe that it's 10 days per year. So essentially 2 weeks per year. And then I think I just hit this full time. So I think mine just increased to a third week that I'll start accruing now. But for most of our staff,
Do we
it's,
have our policies? Like,
It's-
Yeah,
it's all in the handbook.
Yeah, and you guys have all received that.
Do you want me to provide those as an addendum to this for this purpose? Would that be helpful?
I'd like to hear.
I will make a note to send handbook.
I don't think I understand. Talked about it, but I never got that.
Yep, I'll make a note
It's
to get that
okay.
out as
It's
well.
okay, I'm in this kind of.
Usually
email,
we
so
send it
if
whenever
I was in
you board
Gmail,
member
it'd be like,
joins.
Payroll taxes, again, that's gonna be an adjustment when all those final salary numbers are in there. Personnel benefits, line 277, cell phone, that's a $60 a month reimbursement times 4 staff members. I assumed one still for the rec coordinator, just because of the nature of that position and how much they're out and about at different locations. Typically, we have not done that reimbursement for hourly employees, so that's conversation. We also, Jay and I were discussing the possibility of, instead of doing a cell phone reimbursement, for the maintenance manager position, having a district maintenance phone that if it's the maintenance manager or the maintenance assistant, whoever is responsible to answer that on call has that phone. But that rate would be roughly the same. Employee award program 228, that's $1,200. So that we typically, in the past, we did like an employee of the month recognition. They got a tangible item. We have also used that to do like a staff appreciation barbecue or event. We just haven't done that where we've spent from that fund, from that line.
Also. I've done employee of the month in a long time, and that was a board voted decision.
Right, but employee of the month and employee awards are different things.
No, I know, I was just.
It reminded her.
Oh, I got you. Oh, to talk about later on.
Yeah, I know.
Yep. 229 employee uniforms. We reduced down to 2,500 this year. The original amount had been, I believe, something over 5,000. So this 6,000 is assuming that we will need to do the full spectrum of uniforms. It is also allowing some additional uniforms for front desk staff, and then some of those rec positions that we did not budget for in the current year.
I'm gonna logo the heck up.
Yeah,
That's
she's
all I know.
very,
Please, yeah.
So, require front desk staff to have uniforms on?
We do, so they're supposed to be wearing a district logo shirt. Currently, what we've done previously, they get one shirt. Really, for our staff that's working, 5 days a week, they probably need a couple of shirts at least. We also have run out of shirts and we were holding off on ordering, so right now, a lot of them don't. This also has money in there that would go toward having formal name tags for staff again, so. And I believe like the fanny packs for the guards also fall under that employee uniform line. So there's several different types of things that go in there. The medical in there, line 230, that is based on the cheapest rate or the front rate of little booklet.
I haven't looked at it yet, but it's here. It's made it to the.
And that is the full amount. Again, with a cost share, that would reduce down some.
What's the cost share?
So currently it's 80%. The district would pay 80% for employees and 50% for family members or dependent children.
So that, we didn't have anything in there last year.
We did not because nobody was taking medical. So this is just the projection of if people took medical.
Is it that is
100% and everybody took it.
and
Which there's gonna be a lot of discussion on that.
Yes, it's a very large component, I would say, in terms of the conversation piece surrounding it.
Who opted for the 80%? Or who suggested that?
A board member. I don't remember which one.
Well, the minimum's
Yeah.
52 for health benefits, so
Mhm.
just being conservative as far as like what our district's paying. 80% and then 50% for
Mhm.
staff, our families also
Mhm.
questionable.
So that ends personnel benefits, and then we go into minor purchases, which gets weird because some things don't seem very minor. 234 adult swim team equipment for masters. The coach did say that the paddles were something they could use. So that's the amount for those. 235 aerobic supplies, 1,600. Will allow them to get some new belts, some new tubes. They are not tubes. The new heavier duty noodles. And there is some additional equipment that they have requested for the classes. We'll have a meeting with them to determine equipment that would be able to be most functional among all of the classes instead of just being specialized to one. Line 236, aquatic equipment, that includes kickboards, pool noodles for open swims, some inner tubes, life jackets, pull buoys.
Were new.
yeah,
Different noodles.
aerobics and aquatics.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the noodles don't have a hole.
They're on that day.
Yeah, and that, so, oh my God, sorry. I do want to highlight that does include new clear inner tubes that could be used during open swim. That is something that we had for many years, and we do get quite a few requests for to just give an activity. It's a dozen. They'll last as long as they last. 237, 238, those are ARC course equipment and supplies. Those are zeroed out again unless we got an instructor in that was using our equipment. Cleaning and sanitation, line 239, I put it 10% above our year-to-date number because he is spending a little extra on that side. One thing with this that we will be looking at is if we can get vendors and just be on a subscription basis essentially and save money versus running to Home Depot. When 243 first aid supplies. It looks like we haven't spent very much this year because we haven't. It needs a full-on refresh. I'm not gonna lie, it's dicey. So I think we could very easily spend what we have budgeted for this year and still spend that next year to just make sure they have everything they need. 245 kayak equipment. We just put the kayak equipment in the rec area, so this line will eventually come out. 246 office equipment. This is the one we chatted about earlier. We'll add in for the tablets, iPads. And again, it's got Springbrook, the laptops, computer monitors, printers, chairs, all that good stuff in there. 247 office supplies. Again, this one is at 2,500. That's a significant bump up. Again, we need a full restock. The things like the pencils, staples, paper clips, pens, all of that stuff that have not really been reordered in the time I have worked here.
And that James doesn't donate.
And James doesn't donate regularly anymore.
He still donates pens and paper.
Yes, just not quite as frequently as he once did. Pool chemicals, line 248, those are bumped up by about the 10%. Shane figured that was a solid number. 50 retail expense, again, that one's increased to be able to get in some logo merchandise and whatnot in that category. 250
For what?
Hmm?
For what?
retail.
Yeah, I understand, but what's different between that and the other logo retail stuff?
This is the expense for it. The other was the revenue.
And it's going up because we haven't ordered much.
Because we haven't ordered much
We
and
have a new palette.
yes.
And we can make water.
Yes.
2,000 ain't gonna get you very far.
I'm aware. And it is one of those things. So, retail expense and concession expense, both, I tend to keep those low and ask for increases based on what sales actually look like. Just, so that's how I,
If this goes up, our sales go up.
yes, exactly. It's an easy upsell, down the road if we need to adjust. 251 swim school supplies, that is for some alignment kickboards, rings, backpacks, all stuff they use in lessons that we just haven't done a refresh on in 5 or 6 years. The whole next section, vehicle maintenance, I just did a 10% increase on those. Concession expense, very similar to the retail expense where it's in there adjusted as we need based on sales. Small tools and equipment, 259. I left it at the 4,000. That ends up being things that, a drill breaks or hammers or.
It's been the maintenance manager's request to have that amount in there.
Yes.
That's just in case.
The minor purchases other is something I did not budget for because I think we had discussed in a previous meeting, finding more appropriate places for those items to go, but that ends up being things like a clock that for the locker room. It's not really aquatic, things like that. Do you have any questions about those sections before I move on?
So that's only about 800 change that needs to be
Yeah.
reallocated to
Yeah.
other line items.
You didn't ask about questions on the last one, so.
Go for it.
Back in section. For the aquatic noodles, can we not buy the white ones anymore? It's, not the aquatic, the aerobic noodles.
So no.
They have to be the blue ones.
Oh, you guys are spicy.
As long as they're dense, high density, but not dollar store.
They weren't dollar store. They weren't. I swear.
Okay.
And they were toted as
I think the
aerobics.
reseller bought them at the dollar store.
I have received various comments about that. I will say.
I understand that the blue ones are like $40 a piece, but there's a reason for that.
I've never had this conversation before.
Really?
Really? No.
Yeah, the blue aerobic noodles are about $40 a piece. And they are worth every penny of it.
Think about doing a roast class.
In the same. No, I mean, in like 30 years, no
The
one's
white
told me
one
that there's a
and the
difference
blue
between them.
Oh, yeah.
There's another story of the white ones that.
Okay, now we can.
I haven't gotten a comment card about it, so that.
We prefer to comment on person.
I don't have to, it's on video.
What's on video?
It is now.
Oh.
Professional services, we kind of went over. earlier.
It's,
Yeah, professional services, we largely went over. Most of them are a 10% increase. So line 272, I will be adding in 1250 to purchase an agency membership for Washington Recreation and Park Association. That gives membership to all staff. It gives us ability to post open positions at no charge. It gives us discounts on other trainings. And I think just as we are moving forward, having that recognition is going to be really important.
We're not expecting an increase in landscape maintenance, line item 276.
So that is our agreement with the city.
Okay. Excellent.
When I put there that sleeping dogs lie.
Down $2,000.
There's
it's at 2,200.
It's at-
2,000.
Yeah, we only spent 2,000, but we're anticipating to only spend 2,000 again. That was my question, but
So are we,
They-
are we staying
they-
the same?
They billed us 2,000, that's what we paid.
it's a good policy.
Legal I put to 10,000. I think our original amount this year had only been, I want to say 6,000 or 8,000 before the amendment. And we spent extra because of levy review, metro review. And we are, per the insurance, supposed to have any contracts reviewed by legal. So I kind of put middle of the road, just anticipation of what may be coming. The training courses and tuition, line 285 at 25,000. It looks like a large increase. And that is assuming that we will be contracting out for 2 full lifeguard courses, 2 full WSI courses, sending at least 2 staff members for AFO certification. That includes some training dollars for Jay to be able to do some additional training, for myself to be able to do some additional training. It also includes having that lifeguard trainer come down and do monthly in-services with the lifeguard staff.
That AFO training's like $400
Per
per person.
So with line items like that and like a lot of
Probably
things.
the office equipment.
Yeah, can we break those down?
And this is another one where we don't have a total in the proposed budget. That bothered me.
I wonder if it's that same thing because I left the one blank, but that is strange that it did not total over there. It should, I don't, yeah.
120960.
20. Thank you.
The next page, line 290, advertising. I dropped this down to 15,000 based on what we've actually ended up using this year, and still wanting it to be a substantial enough number that we can be present in the community.
I kind of like, I want to do that card home at least once a year. Like the mailer that we did for the levy, I want to do it like once a year. At least.
With like programs on it.
Yeah,
or something
like
like
here are the
that.
programs for the next year, here, stuff like that.
Could that be like in June, like how you guys push for the summer programs or no?
Well, that's what this year will be, but then next year I'm gonna aim it to come out January 1st for them to stick on their fridge.
And it should be framed under kind of a heading of your.
291.
So the other question that I had about this is 2 years ago, we spent the 7,800 on the what to go, where to do page of the chamber, right? And it had our logo on the chamber page on that section. This year, we spent the money on carnival tickets. If you had, my guess is we'll be selling carnival tickets again next year because it's an easy place and to go, and it brings people in the door, and the Chambers has to, this year was what, our third year or second? Our second year doing it. And we chose to sponsor it because of the levy. If you had a choice, which one would you prefer, the website or the
I
tickets?
think the tickets get people in the door more than having our local chamber.
You can still sell tickets without paying that fee.
Yeah, without,
What we paid was actually sponsoring the.
yeah, to help pay for it to come to town. We can still sell the tickets without putting our logo on the tickets.
Be a title sponsor.
If you pay the money.
If we pay the money, where it's.
Okay.
Otherwise,
Were we a title
if we were.
sponsor?
Yeah.
Yes.
So like some of the things
Did we
they
get
did.
the commission?
Some of the things they
Touch.
did for us, like we were the very first parade behind. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's some bang for the buck.
I think so
I'd
too.
rather go that way than.
Okay, so carnival, okay. That just helps me to call Dana now and be like, we got carnival.
Yeah.
Anything else for advertising?
No, that was my big question.
We had a couple minutes and we'll.
I know, right?
Yeah, a little further down the list, we can come back to.
No, for sure. 291 through 299, again, it did not total communication. I'm so sorry. I don't know why it did not total those. But those are pretty much the standard 10% increases in those areas. The phone service 294 might be a little bit more than that, and that new number is based on a rate increase that they provided us.
357.
Say again?
35784.
Then travel, we bumped back up to 2200, line 300. I think we had 2000 in for this year originally, and this 2200 may be more appropriate for next year if we have to send people to in-person training for like the AFO or any of the trainings that we elect to do that we could not do virtually and that could not be paid for with points. Insurance, Jay mentioned earlier, 301, we did 20% increase on that pending getting that actual quote back from Levitt Group.
And I tend to pay this at the first of the year because it avoids finance charges for us.
Yes. Yeah, they will, so the policy renews technically in December. They send us a bill that we don't have to pay until January. Lines 303 through 309 utilities, that is all pretty much that standard 10% increase. I did not increase anything in 305 for garbage. The next one, 311, capital expenses. 468 is the added together amount of this lengthy list of items. As soon as we're done here, I'll go and make copies of this for you guys so that you can have them to review. This is the comprehensive maintenance plan. Shane gave it to me with things marked in red for this year and hash marks next to the things he included. It is things like motors, pumps, the HVAC system, relining all three bodies of water, depth markers, replacing the ball swing and platform, painting the exterior of the building, window replacement, entry exit door replacement, and dry side floor resurfacing. So everything, the side of the pool.
So it was in the budget this year to start on the exterior painting. What happened?
I told him to freeze everything until we knew what was gonna happen with the levy. Because
I'm trying to figure out how that works because the board specifically approved it.
well,
And then
because we were starting to wonder where we were really going to shake out at the beginning of last year, like he doesn't have like the doors done, even though he purchased the doors. And so I said, well, don't purchase anything until you get some of these other projects done. And so he just has other projects going and he hasn't gotten to them yet. And so I just said, well, freeze it. If you're not going to do it now, freeze on, because if you buy the paint now and you don't put it up, you know, the paint's not good later on. So that's why I put the hold on.
that when things like that happen, can it be communicated back to the board that it's not happening?
Sure.
Like the logic's there, I understand. Just if the board specifically approves something and then it doesn't happen, like communicate as to what those preventive things were.
The 314, that's a lot of miscellaneous.
So that again is the carnival tickets. That is not, so if we could anticipate or know for certain that we're going to sell carnival tickets again, we could try and put them in. They're an exact wash. I do know from conversation that we probably will not be the exclusive location selling tickets in the future. But
Could we just have a? Such a significant amount showing up in
we
miscellaneous,
could.
and then it ends up being a wash anyways.
Would you want that underneath or under advertisement?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. And I think that I want to say that when we make the switch to Springbrook, you guys are really going to see the categorization is going to look a lot different because it's going to be a lot more GL number based. And honestly, when you're doing the annual report, all of these things that take 20 categories go into one line. So I'm not sure how Springbrook's going to break that down for us, but I will definitely keep the notes so we can try and get it as concise as possible in there. This whole next section, we should not have any audit expense, 317, 319. That is, the clean water utility is essentially what we pay in lieu of property taxes.
Do we not have business taxes?
So business tax is a weird thing because this is something I'm hoping Springbrook will solve. Because everything that gets entered in that feeds into the P&L is the pre-tax amount. And then we pay DOR, but it's not including sales tax. But the reason that this is showing as a business tax is when we paid it with a credit card or when we paid it, no, that would all be when it was paid with a credit card that it's showing that way. When we pay it as a county transfer, it journal entries and it doesn't show here. And I'm not sure why.
This is the batteries low.
Are we
battery
missing?
Sorry, I missed that.
How many boxes are we missing and how much is it actually throwing off the end result?
On the business tax,
On the whole document?
on the whole document. That is a really good question. And without going back and seeing why those aren't filling. I can go through and update it and I can send out an updated version that has them all plugged in. So we'll answer that question because I wouldn't begin to know just looking at it.
No, we're over 200,000 just in two categories.
I'm wondering if I wish I had grabbed my laptop and brought it in because I'm not sure why it did not calculate those. And I'm not sure what else it pulled. Election services, we discussed, 320, that's an estimate of the 10,000. I doubt we will see a bill until early December. 321 employee advisory service, that renews every other year, so we're on a renewal year for that in 25. 333 refunds, that 6,000 is based off of this year's number minus a little bit, just anticipating if we have to cancel things, due to programs not meeting requirements to run.
Smidge, 321 and 322, are they the same thing?
They are.
Okay.
Three 36, the water rec facility permit, it did bump up to 967 this year, and I feel like I read something that said it may increase again, so I put it rounded to the 1,000 to make sure we're covered there. Last page. So this last page, oh,
So
I'm sure Karina has it on.
the total incremental here doesn't make sense. Those numbers above it do not equal that.
The purple numbers?
Think
34. 46.
I got 18,000.
14,000. Sorry. Oh, because it took all of that.
I think it took that 6,000 a second time.
Yeah, there's an extra 6,000 in the proposed budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. It added 334 and 333.
Are we scheduled to vote on this?
The 21st.
I need a really cleaned up version, just wait for then. Be comfortable.
So that's what we talked about at the last meeting, probably having one more budget meeting.
Okay, this back page is just general parts, and then at the very end, it does have, the special events program section toward the bottom. Really, I did the 10% increase for vehicle maintenance, the utilities, so that's gonna be lines 341 through 350. 352 for the ball field side, I put it back to the 10,000, which is what we originally had for this year. We had it down to the 3645 because that's all that had been spent to date. And Shane said he was not aware of anything else that would be done out there this year. I would expect that baseball would have more things they want done next year. The dog park side, very similar. We based it on what had been spent plus a little bit to get through the rest of this year. I put it back to the 3750 we started out this year with, anticipating that there will be maintenance needs out there. Line 358, special events programs.
Good question, the
Yep.
dog park started out at 2,000. It's at 3,750, so that almost doubled.
Its original amount for this year had been 3750.
Okay.
We had lowered it to 2,000 based on what had actually been done out there.
We normally have a volunteer day that we couldn't get done in April. So sometimes there's a lot of stuff that goes into cleaning the dog park and doing for the dog park on that volunteer day that we didn't have this year.
For 352, line item for revenue, so baseball. Was there an anticipated revenue?
Not yet.
All in all, I think one of the bigger concerns is now that we found over $200,000 in line items that aren't appearing, we're coming out an absolute wash for next year.
Just looking to make sure there's not anything else in these notes before I address that. Special events programs, we had originally budgeted 8,000 for this year because we were not able to do the petting zoo. We had reduced that down to the 4,000 for this year, but anticipating some more of those events next year, we put it back to where our original number for this year had been. 361, I did have a big question on the landscape maintenance. If baseball is going to continue to mow, are we buying equipment? I don't think we have an answer for that. Portable toilets should remain the same. And that finishes that out. Now to your question, Commissioner Crater, about those gaps in there. I will go back through and plug those in and see where we end up. Generally speaking, what I've always been told is that we want the budget to show a small amount of revenue, not necessarily a huge amount, because especially in future years, we will need to show substantial need for our levy dollars. So I wouldn't expect it to show like a big balloon left at the end. But I will go through and make those corrections. Jay, do you have any ballpark on when we'll get some of those other numbers that are still to be determined?
Probably by the end of this week, beginning of next.
I'm just trying to determine when I might be able to send them an updated.
Well, what ones do you specifically need? Like the landscape maintenance?
The landscape maintenance is a big question for out there.
I would just put in what we've done before, because until the board looks at the contract and looks at Shane's proposal for usage fees, I don't have that information yet. And so I'd rather just have it in there for safety.
Yeah, and then the workbooks we can run for those other programs. I think it's probably the other big one.
I say leave the insurance at 20%, because even after they told us it wouldn't be 20% last year, it was 20% last year.
This is true.
Unless you guys disagree with me for the insurance.
Oh, I think 20%. Can I impose a date on you, please? Because I need time to review it and I will not have time next week during work. I would like to see as much as you can, as cleaned up as this can be by Friday, so I can review Saturday and Sunday.
By end of day Friday?
Yeah, that's fine, because I don't care if it's 11:59 Friday night. I need to see it on Saturday morning, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and that falls right in line with what I was thinking. And then if we get late numbers, we can always email those out.
Yes, and that's, I would appreciate that. Is that okay with everybody else at the table?
Certainly.
You wanted to squeeze in another budget meeting?
It's not this Thursday.
It's next
next-
Thursday.
next
It's 10 days.
Well, that's what you guys had said at the last meeting. That you guys thought another 2 more. So that's where.
Yeah.
Well, the next one shouldn't need to go line by line. We'll plug and play the new numbers that we get in and make sure that we're okay with in our pre-review. I don't think we need to go line by line again.
Yeah, and we don't normally. We normally input what you guys are thinking, and then
I need to see this.
any
Can you
changes
send
that
it?
you guys want to
The
see made.
updated
And
one. Thank you. Yeah.
So you want to schedule a date now? Another date?
Before the 21st?
You know, how much work comes out of the budget meeting?
We used to do that on the 18th, right?
Yeah. 6 months.
It does. Final thought is there's so many outstanding things right now. I think we need to get a working budget that but I don't think we're gonna get it to 100%. I don't see us getting to 100% by the end of the year. I don't think we're even gonna have a 80% by the end of the year. We need a budget that we can move on with. We need to discuss salaries. We need to discuss benefits. We need to discuss pricing. We have to put all that stuff together and figure out the revenue and stuff. So, I guess my thought is we need to get to an 80% budget and approve a tentative budget for 2025 and then start working through all these things that have been neglected. I will say that's my final thought.
I think that's a reasonable approach. We gotta make the decisions we need to make with the information that we're gonna have. And again, budget is a living document, and then we can amend it and adjust it as we move forward. Motion.
So do we want?
So do we want to meet on Monday?
We could do both that day.
We can.
We could.
If we met at 5 for the budget, we could still do our 6 o'clock. Or the other way around also.
Yeah, let's do the budget and then.
Move on to.
And the biggest part of us not being able to understand is without that calculation of how you want us to calculate those numbers.
I'm not holding you.
That's just where we're like,
Yeah, I mean, we have a history of pricing, and if we have to use that for now, we have to use that for now. Not gonna skyrocket either way.
no, I expect it to fall actually. With how, kind of just looking at how you guys had said what would be levy and what would be, I think some of the revenue will fall based on the amount of money that we'll be charging for like swim lessons, right? Stuff like that.
Right, but we're not going from like 40,000 to now. Like,
No,
we're
right.
gonna be in the ball field.
So it's 5 or 6 o'clock.
5 day again, 5:30 at least.
Are you good for Monday?
Can we do the program meeting first?
Yeah.
We just have to keep it to an hour.
So 6:30 for everybody else.
6:30 or 6? We're gonna do, okay.
Give us-
You guys-
Give us one extra half hour.
Okay.
So you want the meeting, the program meeting?
We'll move that to 5.
5 o'clock.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe 18.
Monday, the 18th.
Changing the invite.
I'm sorry.
Are you changing the invite?
I'm all changing it.
And then Melissa's just sending it.
Yeah, I'll send out I can, no, you guys have program already built in your calendars, so I'll send budget out to everybody like I did for this one. And then I'm gonna do 3 hours again,
so we're gonna do that at 6.
30. I know.
Did you say we're gonna do 3 hours again?
I'm allotting 3 hours, it doesn't have.
Two.
Well,
All right, I'm gonna allot 2 hours.
And what I would recommend is if you see something that pushes out at you on Saturday or Sunday, email us so that we can make a correction that you thought that we should have made, so that we come to you with that already fixed on Monday.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think just reviewing
Away from me to spend my anniversary, everybody, I just want to put that out there.
before package. Like just reviewing them for holes and stuff like this.
Well, I think Shane thought that by, because we gave you the list of capital expenses when we did the percentage, I think he thought, oh, they already have that. We don't need to give that out. So I apologize.
No, I meant like our issue right now is we have so many holes that.
There's so
we
many
don't have
places where
Oh,
you
to-
can calculate.
Yeah,
correctly.
that's because we're downloading it into our own Excel spreadsheet and it's not coming out of QuickBooks that way because it doesn't come out of QuickBooks the way you guys want to see it. So. Hopefully Springbrook fixes that.
I move to adjourn.
A second.
All in favor, say aye. Meeting is.
Actually, I move to relocate.
Yeah.